Can you imagine that a god who is actually famous for feeding on hearts can be loved and worshipped? The one who was not only known as a bloodthirsty deity, but also as an embracer, pathfinder, and defender. The one who is also known to control the moon and the stars. The one who has an entire Marvel television series based on his powers. I think it's quite evident that we are talking about none other than the ancient Egyptian god, Khonsu. You must have heard a fair little bit of this and that about Khonsu from the Marvel comics, which find their base in Egyptian mythology. But there is a lot more to know that the series has missed out on or has portrayed in a rather cinematic manner. And all of that will be covered in this video. Hi, and welcome back to our channel, where today we look at the myth of the Egyptian god Khonsu, his appearance, origin, and all depictions. But before we dive deep into this very interesting Egyptian mythology and discuss Marvel's Moon Knight, make sure you hit the like and hit the subscribe button so you get notified of all our future uploads. Now, without wasting another moment, let's get right to it. Some of the most powerful and significant things in the world around us are the elements of nature, like the sun, moon, stars, and wind. And just like many other cultures, the Egyptian culture also deemed them of utmost importance, and it definitely was very common among the ancient Egyptian civilization to worship such celestial bodies. They worshipped many gods and goddesses, each of whom represented something different, and some were fairly more important than others. They had gods of the sun and the air, probably because they were powerful, as well as blessed everyone without discrimination. Following this ideology, Amen became associated with the sun and sky in ancient Egypt, and he and his wife Mut were considered the father and mother of the Egyptian gods. Their son, Khonsu, was later worshipped as god of the moon. Interestingly, there are many other depictions of who his parent deities were. In the lower parts of Egypt, his parents mostly were the lion-headed Sekhmet and the creator god Ptah, while in one variant during the period of the New Kingdom, Khonsu was considered to be the child of Sobek, the crocodile deity, and Hathor, the cow deity. For their appearance, Egyptian deities would normally have a very human body with the head of an animal, such as crocodiles, snakes, cats, rams, and birds. In a similar manner, the hieroglyphics and pyramid texts typically depicted Khonsu as a god with a bird-like head, and he obviously had the moon symbol above his head to symbolize his role. His representation was as unexpected as his description. Khonsu was usually depicted as a young man posing like a mummy and with his arms literally crossed. Going along with his youthful look, he was typically depicted with a side lock or a long braid on his head side and had a curved beard, symbolic of youth. And since he was the moon god, he was also depicted with moon symbols, particularly wearing a big crescent-shaped pendant necklace. This was his appearance as a god. But in ancient Egypt, he posed as a human pharaoh in the city of Thebes. During the same period, the god Osiris was also posing as a human and ruling the city of Heliopolis. And this era was to mark the beginning of the time when Khonsu would be worshipped as the moon god. When Osiris was overthrown by his brother Seth, it created disturbance for the civilization, leading to new roles for the gods. This led Osiris to become the god of the dead, while Khonsu became the god of the moon. Just like any other god, Khonsu was also believed to essentially be powerful against all the evil spirits in the world, but Khonsu's significance seemed to have shifted throughout time. An interesting fact about the ancient Egyptian religion is that moon and fertility were believed to be related to each other, and at one point, Khonsu was known to be the god of fertility. It was a prevalent belief that when Khonsu caused the crescent moon to shine, women conceived, cattle became fertile, and everyone's lungs and throats were filled with a big gasp of fresh air. His name also meant traveler, as he was thought to watch over those who travel at night. So during the nights, Khonsu assumed the role of the god of light and was invoked to protect against wild animals and aid with healing. To add more to the long list of Khonsu's various forms and names, when there was a new moon, he was known as the Mighty Bull, and during the full moon, he was associated with a neutered bull. But one thing sets him apart from the regular image of a god that we have in our mind. Khonsu had a darker side to him, and this side of his was far from his godly depiction of being spiritual and a protector. According to the old pyramid texts, he was also considered to be a violent and bloodthirsty god, as well as a being thought to rule over evil spirits. The fairly secret aspect of him is that he was considered the devourer of hearts. In fact, in some texts, his name is Khonsu, who lives on hearts. In the text of Lower Egypt, Khonsu had the lion goddess Sekhmet for a mother, so it was believed that his reputation for violence was perhaps inherited from his mother. And one would definitely not expect this as a godly persona. But in fact, he actually is described as a prominent figure in the New Kingdom mythology, hailed as the greatest god of the great gods. This literally is exactly why Khonsu can be considered a diverse and interesting figure who depicted two different personalities. Now, let's listen to some very prominent myths about his name. So, Khonsu's reputation as a healer was spread across Egypt from a very popular story, and his association with healing is connected with several miraculous events. In the story of the Princess of Bekhtan, an Egyptian king prayed to Khonsu to embody a statue in order to travel to Syria to heal a princess. The god agreed and entered the statue, and the statue was then sent to the princess. Because the sickness was caused by evil spirits, when the statue arrived, its aura was able to remove the effects of spirits from the princess and heal her. After this, Khonsu returned home to Thebes as a hawk. In another such legendary story, he is also associated with the healing of King Ptolemy IV from a mysterious illness, earning him the name Beloved Khonsu, who protects His Majesty and drives away evil spirits. This is exactly how it's written in the Egyptian text. But Khonsu's powers were not just restricted to these incidents. Farmers also prayed to Khonsu to particularly help their livestock conceive and for their crops to grow. His powers of fertility not only made women fertile, but also made plants grow, fruits ripen, and animals conceive. So this was the story of the great Egyptian god Khonsu. What makes it all the more interesting is the fact that none of this is imaginative. Every depiction has been made on the basis of drawings and carvings that date back thousands of years ago. With such real proof backing the story of the moon god, it makes us wonder if they really are alive in their mummified forms as various conspiracies claim. The answer to this is far from known, but what's known is the fact that these myths surely spark an interest in us to dig deep into the history of the world. And that is what we aim to cover. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so we can bring more of such mythical stories to you in the future. Until then, goodbye.